Football coaches, especially after a loss, are really big fans of that expression, sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. It is a bit of a cliche and it's a bit self-serving, but it's also pretty true that when you win, you're not really that motivated to look at the parts of your game that need work. When you win, by definition, there wasn't a lot of weaknesses exposed, or at least those weaknesses weren't exploited. So it can be even difficult, even if you are motivated, it can be difficult to see where you have to get better. I think it's the same with watches. If you only look at watches that you really like, you tend to not be that motivated to dig in and see where are the weaknesses. Not only that, because you're really only looking at watches that, as I say, you already liked, you don't even really develop the sensitivities, develop the sensibilities, develop the language to really pick into that design and educate yourself not only about what you like, but why you like it, or more importantly, just about watch design at all and what is good or bad beyond, hey, that's pretty, I like that. I think we should spend a lot more time looking at watches we don't like to try and develop our sensibilities and our language and become better at enjoying our watches. Join me on the other side of the intro and I'll talk about that a bit more. Hi, welcome back to Not So Obvious Watches. I'm Pete McConville. And yeah, the premise of this video is that we should spend more time looking at, thinking about, reviewing, even if only in our own minds, watches that we don't really like very much, or even if we do kind of like them, that we know we're never going to buy. The reason is because I think that by simply looking at the stuff we like, we dumb ourselves down. We lose our, if we even develop it in the first place, we lose our critical sensibilities to truly understand, unpick, analyze, and then articulate what it is we do and do not like about watches. And this has sort of been brought on by two things. One, I went back and looked at some of my old videos and sort of to see had I changed my mind about anything or did it give me inspiration for anything new. And I stumbled upon one of my very first videos where I recommended that people review their own watches. I did think about redoing that, but quite frankly, I'm really happy with what I said in that video. The sound could be better, the video could be better, but actually what I said, I really quite like. So instead of redoing that, I'm just going to put a link up here. But what I also remembered was after having said we should put more effort into reviewing our own watches, I remembered how hard I found that. I remembered how tricky it was to even develop a language for what was it I liked and what was it I didn't like. How, and to really do justice to that idea of reviewing my watches. As always, and as a result, I don't review a lot of watches. It's taken me almost 1.5 years, 2 years to feel comfortable that I'm getting to the point where I can actually meaningfully review a watch. However, the thing that really gave me the confidence to move ahead and start doing more meaningful watch reviews rather than simply showcases or descriptions was a moment where I really challenged myself to figure out why did I not like the Rolex Submariner. So the Rolex Submariner is one of the most popular watches in the world. It is many people's grail watch. It is referred to as the perfect watch by many people. And yet I don't like it. I don't think it's a particularly good looking watch. And rather than just accept that, oh, well, it's something wrong with me, I actually sat down really hard and then made a very kind of careful list of what is it I don't like about this watch. And in picking through it, and I'm not going to go into a sort of an assassination of the Rolex Submariner, but in going through that watch and saying, well, what are the things I don't like about that watch? I forced myself to really examine things which, if I did like it, I would never have paid attention to. I certainly wouldn't have put words to. I started thinking about the relationship between the bezel treatment and the case. I started thinking about the gracefulness, the elegance of the curves of cases, how a shape can be awkward or can create tension but still be enjoyable. I started thinking about the importance of typeface, or the importance of finishing on hands and dials and having that match the purpose of the overall watch. I started thinking about the relationship in sizing between hands, dials, bezels, and the overall watch case. I started thinking about things like branding and what's the difference between kind of a suitable and acceptable and appropriate level of branding and what's going a bit too far. Now, in looking at the Rolex and thinking what did I like, and more importantly what I did not like, and then really diving down into it, that gave me tools I could then take to a watch I did like and say, okay, so now I understand that what's really appealing to me here is, unlike this watch over here, I really like the relationship between the bezel and the dial. I think the way that the hands are proportioned compared to the rest of the case makes sense and is pleasing. I can see that here they're not necessarily gone for symmetry, but the asymmetry adds a sense of tension and excitement and movement to the case, and that's a level of understanding of aesthetics I would never have gone into if I hadn't have spent so much time looking at a watch I didn't like and then trying to explain and then articulate that. And before anyone thinks this is just simply a Rolex thing, I learnt just as much tearing into the Oris Diver 65. The Oris Diver 65 is again a much loved watch. It's a watch guys like Jody from Just One More Watch have bought and sold many times because they love it so much. However, I've bought something like 70 watches. I've sold 2, and one of those was the Diver 65. I disliked it so much that it became one of 3% of watches I've sold in my watch collecting journey. When I dig into that watch and try and understand why, I begin to understand the importance of bezel feel, the relationship between colors and how mismatched or complementing colors can work or not work in design, how the importance of material selection is so crucial to enjoying a watch, having those materials work well with each other and be used appropriately. And also, one of the things that the Diver 65 taught me is that there's a nuance in finish that I would never have otherwise known. It is so common for people to simply say, well, this is a polished watch and this is a polished watch, and then think that they're exactly the same. So the upshot is, what I would say to all of you is, if you are going to places like Hodinkee and Worn and Wound and those sorts of places, and all they're ever doing is reviewing watches that they love and it's all, wonderful and light, find somewhere else. Find someone who actually digs into the design of a watch and then talks about it critically. Find people who review watches that they don't like very much, because not only will you learn more about the watch itself, but you will learn so much more about appreciating a watch, about how to understand a watch, than you will if you just watch people who give fairy floss. Isn't this watch great? It's based on one of the first versions of a dive watch, and lots of famous people used to wear it, and the new one's hardly changed from the old. Find someone who tears the design apart. And if you can't find that, try it for yourself. Find a watch that everyone else seems to like, that you don't, and then dig into it. tear into it and think really hard. What is it about that watch I'm not liking? What is it about that watch that's not resonating with me? And I guarantee you will look at your other watches, you'll look at the watches you like with a whole new light, with a whole new level of appreciation for what it is that makes a great watch great, at least for you. And that can't be a bad thing, surely. Anyway, I've been Pete McConville. This has been Not So Obvious Watches. I would love to know your experience. Do you think that you don't need to spend time? You don't have time in your life to think negative thoughts? Do you just want to think about the nice stuff, and do you think that's enough? Or do you agree with me and think that really we need a little bit of sour with our sweet? We need a little bit of bitterness with our sugar to truly appreciate the good stuff. Anyway, love to know your thoughts. Put them in the comments below. I'll see you later. Bye.